All right, moving on to the next group of questions here. That there's a lot of misconceptions, misunderstandings, I believe, that questions have come up is standard construction versus SIPs. How do SIPs compare with traditional building practices? Let's look at the practice first before we get to materials.
You're talking as far as the process of building the house?
Yes. How does that relate or compare or differ?
I'm going to have to compare that a little bit to kitchen cabinets versus just going and picking up something and hope it fits at Lowe's. For instance, the SIPs that we provide are custom cut according to the plan. So there has to be a little strategic planning and scheduling in advance. You know, after the permit has been achieved, or then the builder cannot just go and pick up a bunch of lumber at the lumber yard and go start building a house. So we have to do the scheduling for that, and we have to verify that the SIPs drawings provided by the manufacturer actually match what we have on the permit ready drawings as far as window openings, door openings, exact locations. All that has to be cross-referenced. But when it comes out to the job site, if you would put a pile of studs versus a pile of these custom cut SIPs on the site at the same time, you're going to be under roof with the SIPs 50% faster than you are with the studs.
50% faster than stud.
And not just that, by the time you're under roof, your walls are also insulated and your windows and doors are framed out. Your wiring is ready to be installed. You know, if you set your studs, you insulate them, you got to drill your studs out for your wiring, and then you still have to do all the sheeting and all that stuff.
Right.
With the SIPs, it's all done.
Okay,
You're ready to go.
Not only do they go up faster, it saves on, in one sense, auxiliary steps for finishing out the walls.
Absolutely.
So it's a major savings that way. Okay. How do SIPs compare with traditional building materials? Which that might overlap a little bit with what you've already talked about, stud. But let's talk about strength. So some of those features.
Strength-wise, SIPs are about 3 times stronger than your stud wall.
Okay.
I've seen studies where they had the straight down force on an upright stud wall, and it broke at 30-some thousand pounds of pressure.
Okay.
They put that same width SIP wall under this compressor, and it broke at about 96,000 pounds.
Wow, that's impressive.
So you're looking at much more snow resistance factor, much more wind speed resistance, and earthquake resistance as well.
Now you said vertical, the tests were done vertically. What about lateral pressure? Like sideways, is that also stronger than your stud walls?
It is, because we can span I believe, just off the top of my head, I don't have the numbers here, but a 6.5-inch panel on a 30-pound snow load, we can span that roughly 14 or 15 feet before we need a support.
Okay.
So we can span from the bearing wall to the peak on a 25 or 30-pound snow load without requiring
just with the panel,
with the panel,
from the wall to the ridge beam without any rafter support underneath.
Yep.
Compared to what roofing system otherwise?
2x10, which requires that you set each 2x10 at 24 inches on center. You sheet it, you put insulation in it, you have to cut every one. The SIPs themselves, all pre-cut, all ready to go.
And they also, again, just like the walls, has your insulation already in, and you don't have to worry about extra finish that way.
Yep.
Okay. Structurally speaking, with the force test you mentioned, I was fascinated when I started looking into SIPs about what they call the I-beam construction effect that SIPs have. Could you explain that a little bit?
It's the combination of the OSB board on the outside and inside, and then the high tensile strength of the foam itself.
Okay.
Just all that glued together. It works kind of like an I-beam. You have the top and bottom plate on the I-beam with the center part as the web.
Vertical support.
And yeah, and the foam is actually what helps tie your outside and inside skins together.
Okay.
And just like the I-beam vertical web ties the bottom and the top together.
Right.
That's what they're getting at with that.
Okay, just wanted to mention that for clarity's sake. Good, good. So how do SIPs need to be handled on the job site? Are there any special instructions or methods or things that need to be done on site that people should know about when you're looking at this, just for the sake of knowing what they're getting into?
Well, the number one thing is it is a pre-made product, so you don't want to just go and abuse it by throwing it around like a 2x4 or a 2x6 on the site. You know, somebody has a stray 2x6 on the site, they'll just kick it out of the way. If there's an extra panel, not an extra panel, but a panel that you're not ready to set up yet, you got to make sure that your panels are stacked flat and that you pick them up at even points on the crane. You don't want to just pick them up at one end and try to swing them into place. You have, you can either loop it through a window or door opening, or sometimes they even recommend putting a hook in through the OSB skin. It's so strong that the hook will just hook into that in a couple different spots. You can pick it up at balancing points and just slide it into place.
Okay.
And you got to keep it dry, just like all your materials that you have on the job site.
Right, we've seen that with plywood delaminating and things like that. So until it's sealed with an exterior finish, you run a little bit of the same thing, which if it's OSB, which these panels are all OSB, right?
Correct.
That moisture can make them swell and be a little uneven for a surface.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, after a brief intermission and filling up with coffee here that's cooling off, ready to drink, we'll dive back into this. Just have a couple more questions about the comparison of standard construction versus SIPS panels. We had ended with how SIPs need to be handled on the job site. And just wanted to clarify, Larry, something you had mentioned about being careful with them on the job site right after you mentioned all the strength stuff. So just in case people are wondering, well, why do we need to be so careful if they're so strong? And I'm sure it's a practical reason, but if you just want to expound on that a little.
You don't want to damage any corners.
Okay.
You know, in handling them, you don't want to crack anything or, you know, bang it against the concrete wall, foundation wall, for instance, because you would have to cut away, you know, one skin and fill it up with a little foam, make sure it's filled solid again, and then replace it with a small patch if it gets that bad. Case in point, I did a design job in South Carolina, and the guy was a do-it-yourselfer, left the panels up, that what he had set up, and they weren't properly supported, and a windstorm came through and blew them down and damaged them. And what happened was the claims adjuster for his insurance company said he knows about SIPs and they weren't damaged badly enough to replace them. Which means, so if they are damaged, they can be repaired.
Okay.
But they are a pre-cut custom product, so you want to take care of that. You're not just because they are 2 times stronger or 3 times stronger than the stud wall, that you just mishandle them and sling them around any old way, because you want everything to be as straight and true as possible.
Yeah, you want to go deliberately knock around the stud frame wall that's just half finished either. You know, it's the strength is in its design, and when it's in place and properly secured, it's where the strength comes from, as well as individual in some sense, but there are, like you said, the skins that could get damaged through various things.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I'm sure that's a point of interest that our viewers will find helpful. So what exactly is, now let me back up a little bit on that. Does a builder need special SIPs qualifications in order to build with these SIPs?
No, not at all. And that's a question that I get asked a lot. I have questions like, do you travel to such and such a state to install these? Like, no, I'm just an independent designer. Anybody who knows which end of the hammer to get a hold of, or how to run a screw gun, or how to squeeze the handle on a torque gun, they can build with SIPs. The drawings that are provided are so clear, step-by-step detailed, that it's pretty much like putting together a big tinker toy.
Okay.
You know, you start with number 1 and you work your way around the building, and it all goes together.
In fact, case in point, if my memory serves me, is the very first design job and building job that you oversaw the SIPs with through your plans at homeowner that wanted that energy efficient project. that builder had never touched SIPs before, so it was kind of a double whammy. You were getting into something you'd never done before as a designer, but you researched it, you liked it, and then the builder that they chose himself had the guts, the courage to go ahead and do it, and he had never done it before.
My hat's off to that guy. He said he likes the idea, he's interested in trying it, which is 99% not what you hear from builders.
Especially this area.
Yeah, and well, lately even across the country.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah.
And to be clear, this is not, SIPs are not anything new. They're like, what, 50 years old, the concept?
Oh, more than that. They actually came out around the 1950s.
1950s, so
That
we're
would
looking
put
at
it almost in the 70-year range.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
cool, very cool.
I mean, the science behind them has come a super long way compared to what it was back then.
Sure, and they've gotten better from what they started
yeah.
as, but yeah, so there's nothing to be afraid of for anybody.
No, not at all. I mean, you need a screw gun, you need a caulk gun, and you need the ability to place some foam stripping at the joints before they get pulled together, and just follow the instructions.
And that connects to the last question we have here regarding the comparison of standard construction versus SIPs. And what exactly is included in the SIPs building package? Let me rephrase that. The SIPs that you offer and work with, what's included in that package? And I will get into some differences later in another section here.
The SIPs themselves, of course, with the pre-cut openings, the electric conduit, the plastic boxes installed like you see here. There's a sill plate that gets attached to the subfloor that the SIPs sit on.
Okay.
That is included. The 4-inch walls come with a connector or top plate, where the top joints are overlapped with this plate that goes across the top. All the caulking that's required, foam stripping, all the screws that are needed to put the things together. Yeah, really nothing is left out. You don't have to go buy anything extra.
Okay. All right, good enough. Is there anything else we need to know about the building package it comes with? Like, typically, I guess, one question that comes up with the tiny home packages that you offer is, what is provided? What do I need to get yet?
The basic thing is the builder or the homeowner has to put down the foundation and the floor system.
Okay.
And then the SIPs can go from there on up to the roof if the design allows it. If the person just wants to use standard roof trusses, he can just buy the wall package from us.
Okay.
You know, just get the super insulation out of the walls.
And there's no tricky interfacing or connecting of the walls to the standard truss system or rafters if they choose not to go with the panel roof.
Nope, if you know how to connect trusses to a standard stud wall, that's how you connect them to the SIP wall.
Okay, good, nice to know.
Same way with rafters. If you don't want to go with the expense of the roof panels, you want to go with rafters, they connect to the same way to the walls as they would if it was a 2x6 frame wall.
With that said, of choosing to go with rafters brings up another point. What are some of the guidelines that people go by for whether they would choose to use the better insulated panels or the complete SIPs roof panel versus other more traditional roof framing like rafters or trusses?
That is a question that would probably keep me here all night explaining that one.
Is there any way you can simplify it just for the sake of this? Maybe we can do a later video just about that.
Well, let's compare a ranch house where you have no desire for cathedral ceilings anywhere.
Okay.
Then you would only want to go with the wall panels, because you do not want to put roof panels on top of trusses. And trusses, to those that don't know, are a prefabricated roof system with a flat ceiling and your roof slope all built into one system.
Flat in most cases. There are scissor trusses that allow.
That's another subject we could talk about.
Cathedral, but anyway, same concept.
But just for the sake of argument, let's say the ranch house is only getting flat ceilings. So then from that flat ceiling point up to your roof slope, inside that truss is all that dead airspace. And it's more effective to put traditional insulation onto your ceiling than it is to put insulated panels on top of your roof.
Right.
Because technically, if you do that, you're heating up all that dead airspace.
Right.
Which I have a program, it's called a ResCheck program, that if you actually put in the parameters of the insulated panels on the slope of a truss, versus putting blown-in insulation in a flat ceiling, your insulated roof panel is going to come out less efficient
Okay.
than it will with the traditional blown-in.
And also you'd have more wasted material with following the whole slope of the truss with insulation, or the edge, I should say, the slope of, rather than just flat across the ceiling.
Yeah, that's a minor point,
So it'd
but
be higher.
what I'm getting is your value would be for the cathedral ceiling in a design would be where you want to use your roof panels.
Okay, open cathedral.
Because your ceiling slope matches your roof slope,
Okay.
and that's where your structural part would be with the panels.
Okay.
Of it's your dense insulation right there at the heat source, so that's where
Right.
your heat savings is going to be.
And regarding such building packages, why do you not provide more finished materials or windows, as some questions keep popping up? Like, what do you all provide? Is it just the walls or the roof, or the whole package?
Cost is you can buy the same window in Missouri that you can buy in Montana, that you can buy in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So if I'm building here in Lancaster County, why would I want to buy a package that includes windows that I can get locally? It's going to take another truck, another shipping cost, another handling fee to
Right.
get that same product here to finish the house than it does if I would just buy everything locally.
And the same goes for
And
the rest
again,
of the materials, yeah. Very good point, very good point.